The Wisconsin Badgers, they get their first victory of the season, a 105-76 victory over the Arkansas State Redhawks. You talk about the first thing that's important. Well, it's a Kohl Center record, 105 points, shooting 65% from the field, 50% from three. It's a pretty big win for the Wisconsin Badgers here. Let's talk about the highlights. I mean, let's start with the incoming guys. I mean, AJ Storr, 15 points. You point to that first stretch. He scores 9 points early in the game. He's a guy you can just give the ball to, go one-on-one. He can go score, but also had a lot of post touches, some nice fadeaway jumpers. That's his marquee shot, from the post and a couple of fadeaways. He's a guy who can score a lot and a guy who I expect to be the Badgers' leading scorer. John Blackwell, though, another nice, some contributions you may not have expected as much given Connor Season's injury and also the way that this game went with the pace of the game. But Blackwell does all the right things. I mean, he has scored 12 points, 100% from the field, but it's not like he's creating for himself. He's just finding ways for him to be in the right position to score. He had a back cut early that led to a layup, ended up having a putback where he ends up, getting fouled and going to the free throw line. Later on in transition, he's initially filling the right lane, but then cuts and goes to the left corner. Chucky Hepburn finds him after making a move for an open three. Blackwell gets fouled later on with another three. Something that really impresses me is confidence to shoot the ball. He's a guy who he will not be afraid to let it rip. And that's kind of what the Badgers need out of their backup point guard position. Not only a guy who can do the right things, facilitate the offense, play good defense, but also not be a liability on one side of the court. That's not John Blackwell. He's a guy who's able to, do the right things, and that's why he's getting some good playing time. Then we talk about Nolan Winter. I mean, statistically, maybe not as high as the other two guys, but he did a lot of good things as well. 6 points, and it's a bit of a different challenge, smaller lineup, so Winter doesn't get to play as much, but with Stephen Crowell in foul trouble, Tyler Wall in foul trouble, Winter ends up getting a lot of minutes here, 15 minutes in this opener, scored 6 points, 3 for 3 from the field, a nice, had a couple of nice buckets, and he's a guy who you also anticipate playing a high role. He was a guy who was first off the bench, and I think the Badgers are definitely going to rely on a guy like Nolan Winter. But overall, I think you can see the depth is pretty big on this team. They played 12 players in the first half. Again, the pace of the game, the way this game ends up going, you're able to play 12 players, which shouldn't be the case in regular weeks. But the point is the Badgers can play 12 players, and I think that's a good sign. Backup point guards, Cam McGee, he's a guy who can play defense. Isaac Lindsey, he's a guy who can consistently do things. Just creating a spark off the bench with his scoring ability. And then Blackwell as well, marking alongside Connor Season. Then you talk about the forwards. I mean, you talk about Nolan Winter, Carter Gilmore still does his contributions and things like that. So it's a lot of good for the Badgers. But the main highlight of today's game is Chucky Hepburn. Very impressed with the way that he was able to be poised in this game, and his decision-making is improved. 20 points, 6 assists, but he was consistently looking for his teammates, creating and being aggressive. It's not settling for jump shots and things like that. Although the jumper was working for Hepburn today, it's being aggressive and doing the different things as well. That's what really impressed me about Chucky Hepburn today. I think that that's something that's going to continue, and if he can, the Badgers are in good hands. Their program's in good hands because he's the point guard. That's something that you're going to continue to look forward for. A lot of good from the Badgers. Let's talk about some of the negatives. 76 points, that's something you don't necessarily want to give up, but I'm personally not that worried. The Badgers didn't give up more than a point per possession, as Greg Gard mentioned. This is something I was keeping track of throughout the game. Moving on, talking about some of the negatives from this game. Badgers gave up 76 points, but I don't think it's as big of a worry as you may insinuate. They gave up less than a point per possession. It was just a lot of possessions in this game, so they gave up a lot of points while also scoring a lot of points. But defensively, you got to foul less. You can't have 24 fouls. You can't give up 33 free throws. I don't think that that's something that's going to slide later on. So the Badgers got to improve in that range, as well as, some of the little things. But it was a really, really good start for the Badgers here. 105 points at the Kohl Center. Offense, that was the issue last year, is clearly clicking. So Badgers in good hands right now. Stay tuned for the postgame.